The lights were blinding, the air electric, and the world seemed to hold its breath. A young boy, no older than 13, stood barefoot at the center of the massive stage. His clothes were worn, his hands trembling as he held the microphone. The crowd murmured, the judges exchanged curious glances, and the host whispered softly, "What's your name, young man?" The boy swallowed hard before replying, "My name is Arjun." His voice was soft, fragile, yet carried an innocence that instantly drew attention. "And who are you singing for today?" the judge asked. The boy looked down for a moment, his lips trembling, and then whispered, "For my mother, she can't be here today." The arena fell silent. The judges, who had seen hundreds of hopefuls, suddenly felt something different. This wasn't just another audition, it was something far deeper. Arjun took a deep breath as the soft piano music began. For a moment, his fear faded, replaced by something powerful: love, loss, and memory. His voice rose, trembling at first but then soaring with emotion. Every word seemed to carry pain wrapped in hope. The lyrics spoke of a mother who worked under the sun, who sold flowers on the street corner just to buy her son a book. It told of her smile, her sacrifices, and her promise that one day her boy would sing for the world. The camera panned across the judges' faces. The woman in the middle bit her lip, tears already forming. The audience sat frozen, many with hands over their hearts. The boy's voice was raw, unpolished, but every note felt alive. It was as if he wasn't just singing, he was bleeding his heart through every word. When the last note faded, there was silence. Then, one by one, people stood. The applause began softly and grew into a thunderstorm. One of the judges, a man known for his cold critiques, stood up and hit the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained from the ceiling as Arjun dropped to his knees, tears streaming down his face. But while the world celebrated, his eyes searched the empty corner of the audience, the seat his mother couldn't fill. The story of Arjun had begun long before that stage. He was born in a small village far from the shining cities, where music was a dream too expensive to chase. His father had died when he was 5, leaving his mother, Meera, to raise him alone. She worked multiple jobs: cleaning, washing, selling flowers, anything to keep food on the table. Every night, she would hum lullabies to him, songs her own mother had sung. Arjun would listen, eyes wide, absorbing every note. When he turned 8, his mother noticed how he could mimic melodies perfectly. She smiled and said, "Your voice is a gift, Arjun. Promise me you'll never stop singing." But life had other plans. They couldn't afford school, and survival became their only goal. Arjun would sing on the streets while his mother sold flowers nearby. Sometimes people tossed coins, sometimes they didn't. Yet, even on the hardest days, she never let him lose hope. One winter evening, Meera fell sick. It started with a cough but quickly became worse. Arjun tried to take care of her, but medicine cost more than they could afford. He sat by her bedside, holding her hand as she whispered, "If something happens to me, promise you'll keep singing. Don't let the world silence you like it did me." He nodded, tears falling onto her frail hands. 2 weeks later, she was gone. The world turned gray for Arjun. He stopped singing. He spent days wandering the streets, clutching her old scarf. But one evening, while sitting near a train station, he heard a street performer playing a guitar. The melody reminded him of his mother's humming. Without realizing, he began to sing softly. The performer stopped, listening in awe. "Kid," he said, "you have something special. Don't waste it." Those words lit a fire in Arjun's heart. With no money or family, he began to sing in crowded markets and bus stops. His voice carried pain, but also resilience. One day, a music teacher named Rehan happened to pass by. He stopped, mesmerized by the boy's voice. "Who taught you to sing like that?" Rehan asked. Arjun looked up shyly. "My mother." The teacher saw something in him, a spark of pure talent mixed with sincerity. He decided to help. Rehan took Arjun under his wing. He gave him lessons, taught him breathing techniques, and helped him believe that his story mattered. "You're not just singing, Arjun," he said one day. "You're telling the world who you are." With Rehan's help, Arjun applied for a national talent show. He didn't expect much, but to his surprise, he was accepted. The journey wasn't easy. Arjun had no fancy clothes, no supporters, and no confidence in front of cameras. Other contestants mocked his background. "You think the judges will care about some street boy?" one sneered. Arjun stayed quiet, remembering his mother's words, "Let your song answer them." On the day of the audition, he wore his mother's scarf around his wrist, the only thing he had left of her. And then came that unforgettable moment, when the music started and he sang for his mother. The entire country watched in silence. By the next day, his video had gone viral. Millions of people around the world shared his performance, calling it the song that made even the judges cry. Messages flooded in, parents thanking him for reminding them of their children, children thanking him for making them appreciate their mothers. But Arjun didn't care about fame. When he was asked in an interview how it felt to get the golden buzzer, he said softly, "It felt like she was there. Like she heard me." Those words made even the host tear up. As the competition went on, Arjun continued to perform with heart and honesty. Each song carried a piece of his journey, the hunger, the hope, the loss, the love. Even when he faced tough rounds, he never gave up. He wasn't just competing for a title, he was singing for every child who ever lost someone, for every mother who sacrificed silently. When he reached the finals, the world waited. The stage lights dimmed again. Arjun stood with his mother's scarf tied around the microphone stand. "This one's for her," he said quietly before the music began. He sang the same song, the one that changed his life, but this time, his voice was stronger, fuller. It was no longer the cry of a boy, it was the promise of a son. As the last note ended, the entire arena rose in a standing ovation. The judges were crying openly. One of them said, "You reminded us why music exists, to heal, to remember, to love." Arjun smiled through his tears. He didn't win the competition that night, but he won something greater, the world's heart. Months later, Arjun used his prize money to open a small music school in his mother's name, the Mira Foundation for Music. It was for children who couldn't afford lessons, just like him once. He often told his students, "Don't chase applause. Chase truth. The world will hear you when you sing with your heart." Years passed, and Arjun became a symbol of hope. His voice echoed in concerts, on television, in the hearts of millions. Yet, every time he stepped onto a stage, he would whisper, "This is for you, Ma." Because in the end, it wasn't fame that defined him. It was love, a mother's love that even death couldn't silence, and a boy's voice that carried it across the world. That night, when the golden confetti fell, it wasn't just a victory. It was a promise kept, a song that reached heaven. The song that reached heaven. Months had passed since Arjun's unforgettable performance. The video of his golden buzzer moment had broken records across social media, gathering millions of views and countless comments from people around the world. Everywhere he went, people recognized him, the boy who sang for his mother, the boy who made the judges cry. But fame, Arjun soon learned, was not as simple or kind as he imagined. With popularity came pressure. Invitations poured in from talk shows, sponsors, and music labels. People wanted to shape him, polish him, and change his story into a product. He was only 13, yet suddenly surrounded by adults who spoke of contracts, tours, and money. Rehan, his mentor, tried his best to protect him. "Don't lose yourself, Arjun," he often reminded him. "The world will try to make you forget why you started. But remember, you sang for love, not applause." Arjun nodded, but deep inside, confusion began to grow. The bright lights that once gave him courage now blinded him. Every performance felt like a test, every compliment like a burden. One evening, after yet another exhausting interview, Arjun sat alone in his small apartment. The walls were covered with newspaper clippings, golden buzzer posters, and fan letters. Yet none of it brought him peace. He pulled out his mother's scarf from his drawer and held it tightly. "Ma," he whispered, "I did what you said. I kept singing. But why does it feel so empty now?" His reflection in the window showed a boy the world adored, but he could still see the child who once sang barefoot on the streets. That night, he made a decision that would change his path again. He called Rayhan and said, "I don't want to sing for fame anymore. I want to sing for people like us." Rayhan smiled through the phone. "Then let's do it your way." Over the next few weeks, Arjun began performing not on grand stages but in orphanages, shelters, and hospitals. He sang for children who had lost their parents, for people who had forgotten how to smile. His voice became softer, purer, filled with compassion rather than performance. Wherever he sang, silence would fall, the kind of silence that comes when hearts listen. One day, he received a letter from a girl named Ria. It was written in shaky handwriting. "Dear Arjun," it read, "I'm 12 and have cancer. I heard your song about your mother. It made me cry, but also made me brave. I'm not scared anymore. When I close my eyes, I imagine your mother smiling at both of us." Tears rolled down Arjun's face as he read it. He knew then what his true purpose was, not to win competitions, but to heal through his music. He wrote back, "Dear Ria, my mother always said music reaches where words cannot. I'll sing for you next." A few days later, he visited the children's hospital where Ria was being treated. Cameras followed him quietly, but for once, they didn't matter. He walked into her ward with his small guitar, sat beside her bed, and smiled. "Hi, I'm Arjun." Ria's eyes lit up, weak but full of excitement. "You came," she whispered. He nodded and began to strum the chords of his mother's song. The nurses, the children, the parents, everyone stopped what they were doing and listened. As his voice filled the room, Ria closed her eyes and smiled, whispering, "It feels like heaven." That night, after he left, Ria's condition worsened. A few days later, Arjun received the news that she had passed away peacefully, listening to his song on her little radio. The loss hit him deeply, reopening the wound he carried since his mother's death. But instead of breaking him, it strengthened his resolve. He decided to create something lasting, a legacy not for himself, but for others like Ria. He worked with Rayhan to launch a movement called Voices of Hope, an initiative to bring music therapy and free lessons to underprivileged children. The idea was simple. If a song could heal one broken heart, it could heal many. They traveled from city to city, village to village, carrying little more than a guitar and courage. In one small village, a woman approached Arjun after a performance. She wore tattered clothes and held a small boy by the hand. "My son doesn't speak," she said, "but when you sang, he smiled for the first time." Arjun knelt down, smiled, and said softly, "Then maybe one day, he'll sing too." Over time, Arjun's movement gained national attention. His story was featured in newspapers again, not for fame, but for the impact he made. Donations poured in, enough to build his dream project, a music school in memory of his mother and Ria. At the grand opening, thousands gathered. The walls of the school were painted with murals, one of a woman holding flowers, another of a little girl with a guitar. Arjun stood before the crowd, holding the same scarf tied to his wrist. "This isn't just my dream," he said. "It's the dream of every mother who ever sacrificed for her child, every child who ever lost someone and kept believing. Music gave me back my voice, and now, I want it to give others theirs." The crowd erupted into applause, but Arjun's eyes lifted toward the sky. "Ma," he whispered, "can you hear them?" That night, after the celebration ended, Arjun sat alone in the music room. The moonlight streamed through the window as he began to hum his mother's lullaby. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Somewhere deep inside, he could almost hear her voice singing along, gentle, proud, eternal. Years later, people would still talk about that boy who sang for his mother. Not because of his fame, but because of how he turned pain into purpose. His story became a lesson for generations, that sometimes, the deepest wounds produce the most beautiful songs. And as long as his voice echoed through the hearts of others, Mira, his mother, never truly left. Her love lived on, note by note, word by word, in every melody her son sang. The golden buzzer moment was only the beginning. The real victory came afterward, in the quiet places, in the hearts he healed, and in the promise he kept. The boy who once sang for one person now sang for the world. And somewhere, beyond the stars, a mother smiled, her son's voice had finally reached heaven.